Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Welcome back to the SuperCaZt, everybody. I am your host, the Superfosh, joined as always by my co-host, the Steve Z. How you doing, man?
I'm doing quite well, and I think it's better to pronounce myself as Z, Steve Z.
Well, that wasn't very funny.
It's hard to be as cool as
I hear
Bond. It's hard to live up
I'm
to that,
telling you,
but
man.
we were talking about Bond today, as you guys know. You clicked on the video, and super excited for this episode. It's this is a series that you introduced me to way back in 3rd, 4th grade, and it's just really been a cool part of my life. We've talked about what got us into Bond, but just ranking Bonds, thinking about Bond, the series. What do you think?
I'll tell you what, man. This was an interesting thing to do because you would think, just thinking about it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's easy to rank Bond because I guess at this point we've seen all the films. And by the way, when we say Bond, we mean like the serious Bond films, not the parodies or anything. We're talking Sean Connery on down to the latest guy. But this series has always been close to both of us. My brother got Goldfinger on VHS, and that's my earliest memory of a Bond film, of watching, knowing what Bond is. What about you, man? I know we've probably talked about this in other episodes, but just kind of refresh our viewership here. What's your earliest memory of Bond?
Yeah, my first time ever watched a Bond film was during that 7 Days of 007 they had on TBS.
Yeah.
And I remember catching the end of Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is pretty cool. I like this. And I might have called a little bit of another one.
Yeah.
But the first time I ever remember sitting down and watching one of these films was with you. We caught the end of Goldfinger. I think it was on when I came over to your house. And then we started watching Live and Let Die immediately after that. And then I went and checked that out of the video store. And that's kind of how I enjoyed the series. Is I didn't come out, I wasn't around obviously when the series started. But just watching them any way we could, like either on television, renting them, or sometimes you just had to make that blind purchase, just go out and buy it. And they're just like, I know it's going to be pretty good. It's a Bond film.
Yeah.
It'd be great to watch it. And that's really how I got to watch all of them originally, was sort of piecemeal, sort of out of order.
Yeah.
And that's the way I prefer personally. Where do you stand on that? You like watching them sequentially, or just any grab bag?
I think everybody has their own way, but I'm kind of like you, man. Like if a Bond movie comes on, I'm going to watch it. I do enjoy watching them sequentially in the fact that you kind of see the series progress, and the films definitely get a little bit more hard-edged and a little bit more serious. Obviously there's some really good films in the series, and when I say good films, I mean good films, period. But there's been some duds in this series, unfortunately. But we want to go ahead and say right now that, this is going to be our ranking, and we're going to have our own individual rankings, meaning I'll have a 25 list, Steve Z will have a 25 list. They will probably be pretty close, I would imagine. But if anytime we talk about a film maybe less favorable than what you as the viewer might think, don't get your heart broken.
You left this with Ferrara, I believe.
because we're all movie fans here. We're all Bond fans here. Obviously, if you clicked on this video, you're a fan of Bond yourself. So you may like a film better than we do. And guess what? That's okay. I'm sure there's a few films that we probably liked better as time has gone on. I mean, I know we've talked about a few already that have kind of climbed our list as the years have gone on, and that's just going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of this series. Like I was saying, I'm going to have one ranked very high that most people say that is the worst James Bond film, period. Or I'll have one kind of mid-tier. You're like, what? That is the bottom of the barrel. Meanwhile, this one that I'm going to throw out here at 25 in a few minutes, some people are like, oh, this one's awesome. It's the best. So that's the cool thing about it. And the reason why I bring up this discussion about watching them out of order a little bit is because I actually did what you said. Back at 2000, I randomly went to Second and Charles, and this was in the giveaway pile, as in I got to get this for free.
Wow.
What this is every single James Bond film up to Spectre on DVD, and it's like a Chinese bootleg thing.
Wow.
And I watched all of them that summer. Yeah. And I had some bad experiences with a few. Some of them I kind of enjoyed, but some of them I'm just like, man, not too big on some of these. But then I got them on Blu-ray, and I just really started enjoying them a lot more. Watch them out of order. Yep. Because it's also kind of a bummer sometimes to just watch them that way. Yeah. So that's kind of the way I approach the series. Like I said, this methodology.
Right.
I did it a different way because I tried the old, just try to put them on a list, number them.
Yeah.
And I kept getting tripped up because I thought that my personal bias was getting too much, and inherently there's going to be some that there. Sure. So I actually developed a 14-point little way of ranking Bonds, and I mathematically ranked my Bond films for this one. So,
and I just want to say, I tried that and I couldn't do it. Like it got too monotonous. So you're going to get two lists with different, with different ways of getting there. I'm probably going to be the more generic guy. But my wife got all the films for me on Blu-ray last year, and I will say this: even with the worst film, I really feel like all these films bring something to the table.
Beware, there's danger in the air. Have no fear, Bond is here. Gambling for his life at Casino Royale.
So let's go ahead and start with your number 25, Steve. What do you have for the 25th and I guess subsequently worst Bond to date?
Okay, yeah. So for 25, I have one that it was just a bad film experience, and I thought that just seeing it in the theater, maybe it just gave me a bad taste. I would get over that eventually.
Yeah.
I've watched this film like 3 or 4 times since it came out, and every time I watch it, I think it's going to change for me. I think it's going to get better because Bond films have done that for me. But guess what? Right. Number 25, Quantum of Solace, is the bottom of the barrel. It is the worst James Bond film in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that's my 25 too, so we agree on that. I really want to like this film, man. I really, really do. And the reason is because I want to say it's a continuance of Casino Royale, which, story-wise, it is. He's going after, what's his face? Mr. Pink or whatever
Mr. White.
His name is. Mr. White, sorry.
Not Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, no. He's going after Mr. White, and he ends up finding him later on. Not in that film, but yeah. So you're like, okay, yeah, Casino Royale's awesome. It's a great film. But no, this film, it kind of just doesn't have really anything. I mean, it's boring.
Yeah.
Do you have anything good to say about it at all?
No. I wish I did. And I know that some people really like this one. Like you said, it's a continuation of Casino Royale. So every time I watch Casino Royale, I'm like, hey, Let's try out Quantum. Let's see what happens. Maybe it'll get good for me. And then I get in that first action sequence, and I'm like, this is the worst shot, the worst edited action sequence I've almost ever seen. And I see what he's trying to do, but and I can see how that doesn't bother some people.
Yeah.
But for me personally, the style of the film, the direction of the film, the way the story's told, it just is terrible. I think the only good thing you could say is Daniel Craig. He does a good job. He does the good. I don't have to say anything. I'm just going to brood here. You can tell I'm angry the whole film. You can tell I'm getting over Vesper's death, and he pulls that off. I definitely get this sort of enraged feeling from him. It's an angry film, if you will. But the whole way it's put together, that's what doesn't work for me. The whole editing, the action. I know what they were going for. They're going for the Bourne identity, the Bourne series, what it was doing. Yeah. But they just don't do it well. They do a crap job, and that's what kind of just kills it for me. It's just all of that. I could go on and on. There's the scene where they rip off Goldfinger randomly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
The villain is very generic. I like the plot about the water and everything, because that's sort of real-world-ish. But that's... I just don't see how that relates to any of the other stuff too much. Yeah. And they don't do a good job connecting those ideas. I know this film was shot during the writer's strike, so that's why the script kind of doesn't make any sense. Like Daniel Craig's coming up with lines on the set. And I know he's a great actor, but I don't know if he's a great writer. It's just not... It's not the best. And I know there's been some people that have reappraised it and they love it. And if that's you, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, Daniel Craig's been an interesting choice in the Bond series. I think he's one of those people, and I don't know if my mind's completely made up about him. Like, I don't know if I absolutely love him or really what. Like, he's just always one of those. I think he does a good job, but he just does not scream Bond. I mean, I know we're not ranking Bond actors today, but I think that's a big part. And with this one, he does the assassin, brooding, he does all that really well, but I feel like there's more to the Bond character that should be there, regardless of who's playing him. And I think this movie is one of the best examples. Is there's nothing, There's no Bond girl. Not really. There is one.
Kinda.
But kind of forgetful. Whatever. Yeah. And then the plot is extremely forgetful. Like, it's not a good film, guys. Sorry. So, yeah.
I've got nothing good to say. Even the title song sucks. It's the worst title song in the series. I mean, Jack White and Alicia Keys...
I completely forgot about that. That's how bad it is. It's forgetful. So that's definitely not a good one.
Yeah, it's not great. And sorry, let's move on. Uh, 24.
Go ahead.
This is a movie. So I told you I collected these films on VHS originally.
Yeah.
And I had them all the way up until a certain point. This is the film that made me stop collecting my Bond series. And just almost made me give up on the series totally. It is one of the films that I sat there with my father, and I had to apologize at the end of the movie. I just felt bad. Die Another Day at 24.
Ooh. No, Die Another Day. Okay. I remember watching the preview for this and thinking, oh, that looks cool. They made the movie look really cool. But then you watch it and you're like, this is boring. Like, it was, and I think that's what a lot of these films that are bad and not as good, it's always the story that just gets completely, forgotten or lost, or just, they don't land the way it should. So, and this was, I believe, Pierce Brosnan's last film.
It was, yeah.
And I felt so bad for him because I just felt like he deserves better. I think Pierce Brosnan is a fantastic James Bond. I just don't think he made the best Bond films outside of GoldenEye. And I'm sure we'll talk about that film much later. But this film I have as 23, actually. I have another Bond film, Spectre, at 24.
Really?
Yes. I wanted to like this film a lot too, especially because my wife's a huge fan of who plays Blofeld in that. First of all, I think he was underused. I think
we'll talk about Spectre in a little bit. I'm surprised that you knocked that one down, but I did. We'll get to Spectre shortly. So Die Another Day, you said it's forgetful. You don't remember about it.
It's extremely forgettable, and I hate that it's Pierce Brosnan's last film because he deserves better. Did he maybe stay one film too long? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing is I don't put the blame on him.
No,
I put it on the series creators. They kept ratcheting it up. So like we start with GoldenEye, great return, Tomorrow Never Dies, banger of a film.
Yep.
World Is Not Enough. We're getting kind of crazy now. We got Bond riding around with this nuclear physicist in a tunnel and this weird thing.
Yeah.
And in this one, they just went nuts. We got Madonna doing a cameo. We get a guy that has like plastic surgery where he looks like a totally different race, like a totally different person. That's the thing that doesn't bother me. And I understand camp. I like camp.
Sure.
But this one just doesn't do the camp well, in my opinion. I think it's the direction. This guy actually thought that he was making some great art house film with camp. At least that's the way I've read about it. And I don't think it works. I think it's not that exciting. The action sequences, they feel very fake. Other than the pre-title sequence, I really like. I like the part where he's basically shooting people on a hovercraft. And it's like a video game level or something. I like that part. But then once they get to the credits and the song comes on, I'm like, okay, this movie just lost me. And I tried to give it another try. I have not watched this movie in 20 years at least. And I watched it the other night, and that one did not change for me too much. I guess it went from 25 to 24, but Die Another Day, I don't have much good to say about it other than I think there was some good lifestyle choices as far as like Bond hanging out. This is what he's going to drink. This is what he's going to wear. But also the score is actually really good. The title song sucks, but the score, David Arnold, he kills it on this one.
But I have to say, Pierce Brosnan just looks like James Bond. Pierce Brosnan, I think he has one of the best looks of the character. And I think that, he does a lot to save this movie from being probably last place. I mean, he really, he doesn't really phone his performances in. Really, I don't think so. And so I give him a pass. But as far as everything else, this film's just not good. So
and we're not even talking about the invisible car or anything.
Oh my god,
that's something. And I could roll with that stuff. I mean, I'll sit down and watch Batman and Robin, stuff like that.
Oh my
but it's just how the film's made. That's all I could say. It irks me. That's why on my point scale, these first two that we just talked about are way, way down compared to everything else as far as points.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
But let's move on. 23, the Michael Jordan number.
There you go.
This one is not as great as Michael Jordan. And this one probably could have been at 25 for me if I really wanted to put it there. But there's just certain parts of it that really shine.
Yeah.
And that's No Time to Die, the last film we had of Daniel Craig's tenure. The film where they kill James Bond.
I know.
You just killed James Bond.
Is that
that who it was?
Yes, No Time to Die. Yeah, they kill James Bond, and that's just something. I didn't bother me the first time I watched it, but the more I thought about it, the more I hated this.
Yeah. I actually have this at 20, so I have it a few steps a little higher. But I'll go ahead and talk about it now because we should. I didn't like that they killed Bond. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. I don't think that it landed very well, and I just I didn't like it. I thought it was just I think the death part didn't hit me. I think they missed on that part. I'm not saying Bond can't die because he is human. I mean, he's not Kryptonian or anything like that. So but I just think the way they went about it didn't land for me. And I'm not saying that's what ruined this film. I think the film was kind of boring in its own right. I think Daniel Craig looked bored with this film. I just felt like his heart wasn't in it in a lot of the film, and the plot was just I don't know.
I see what you're saying, and you can't put your finger on it. The plot, it's almost like some parts of it don't make sense. Like this Saffron guy,
exactly.
Why does he want to kill all these people? He doesn't really have a very good motive. Why does he love Madeline? It's just kind of like, where did this come from? I saw you when you were a little kid, and now I'm in love with you. It's a bunch of weird stuff like that. And Blofeld randomly shows up again. He dies. Every character dies. Felix dies. And I don't know. It's the whole Craig thing. You were talking about it earlier. You can't make up your mind about him, the actor. For me, it's the whole what they did with the series. Trying to tell a story through 5 films, and the early films kind of did that a little bit, but to me, Bond does his best when it's episodic. Whenever this is just a character, we're going on an adventure with him. It's about escapism. It's about fun, and that's why I can't rank this one that high, because this one it's not that fun toward the end. I have a lot of fun the first hour or so. That stuff in Cuba with Ana de Marmas. That stuff, top tier Bond. That's one of my favorite sequences in nearly the whole series. But it's everything else past that random Jeep scene they have. Everything after that it kills me. And
and a lot of the films that I think we love in this series, there's a lot of good action. There's a lot of good spectacle. But with these films, it's like, I don't know, ever since Batman Begins, it's like, we gotta be dark, we gotta be brooding, we gotta be, why can't we just be fun? Like you said, why can't these be fun? And I think that's what this film really lacked, is a lot of fun. Everybody dies, basically. And it's just, I really feel like, they're talking about rebooting the series now. And, who knows where it's going to go from here. But I'm with you, man. I was really, really disappointed in this film. I think it missed on pretty much everything it tried to do. And, fine, kill Bond, fine. But it just didn't land for me. And it was very
the execution was terrible, because it goes, not only did it look silly, like that image, it kind of takes you out of the film. You're like, that looks stupid.
Yeah.
But this is James Bond. He could find a way out of this. That's what James Bond does. Yep. He would get out of this somehow. He's just like, you think Indiana Jones and Han Solo are lucky. James Bond is 1,000 times more lucky than those guys.
No kidding, man. And I want to ask you something. I maybe jumped the gun here a little bit, but they bring Judi Dench back to be M after she played M in Pierce Brosnan's era. Where did you stand on that? Like, were you fine with that, or did it bother you that they tried to, capture her magic? Because she's a great actress and she plays a really good M. I'm not saying that at all, but if you're trying to reboot the series with a new Bond, wouldn't you get a new M? So
yeah. It makes sense, especially if they're rebooting like they did, like total continuity change.
Right.
It's supposed to be a totally different character.
Right.
Not been through the Cold War and all that. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but it did bother me at the time, just because Casino Royale rocked and I loved it.
That's true,
so,
and we do still love it. So we'll give it a pass.
Yeah, I guess since we are talking about M, it kind of segues into my next on my list because this is the first film that featured her heavily, like before Skyfall. The World Is Not Enough features a big M plot, and I think that part when it first came out really kind of clicked for me because I'm like, ooh, this is real stakes. This is like close to Bond's home.
Right.
The intelligence office just blew up. MI6 just blew up. It was kind of intense.
Yeah.
But now when I watch The World Is Not Enough, it does not work for me anymore. I wanted it to. I watched it again like a few weeks ago, but it just did not resonate with me at all. So that's why I have it at 22. And it seems like I'm saying that about a lot of these. This one had parts of it I liked a lot. Or I wanted to like in theory. Like Pierce Brosnan, he brings it. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's oozes charm the whole film. The Elektra twist, her being the villain. Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. But
the whole movie is very boring in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the thing with these Pierce Brosnan films. It's like they really focused on the spectacle part and less on the story part. So the stories just were like generic, like, you know, like we could have wrote back in high school or something, you know? And I'm not saying that they didn't have good ideas. It's just sometimes maybe even the execution of those ideas just didn't work. And I think that's with this film in particular, because, you know, you have, you know, what's a good story? It's got high stakes. You know, what's Bond going to do to get out of this trap? Or what's he going to do to save this person? And they have it with this, but it just, I don't know. It didn't work for me either. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of what we talk about with Quantum of Solace. It's the direction. This one is very flat, is the way I felt with this film. It feels like it's almost like a television film or like a soap opera. It gets very melodramatic, and I like that Pierce gets to flex, like do some different type of acting.
Yeah.
And Isabella Rossellini, she's an awesome actress. She does a great job playing Elektra. But it just doesn't work for me. The rest of the film, like you're saying, the plot, very stupid. And I guess that's why they course corrected with Craig, as we were just talking about. Like Craig's films, they try to almost do too much with the story, almost too much with the character, trying to go too deep. And this one, it kind of sets the tone for that a little bit. But at the same time, it wants to, I guess, have its cake and eat it too. It wants to be silly, but also serious at the same time. And involving M in this serious plot and making you scared for her character. Yes, it's great to see Judi Dench out there in the field working and stuff, but at the same time, it's almost like they pushed the envelope too much and got away from the series. Or I don't know, the execution's just crap. That's all I can say. I think you could get away with switching it up, as we'll talk about with, let's say, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That film is shot totally different than any other Bond film, and it works. But this one does not work.
Right. I think my last comment for this one is you spoke about Elektra, and I'm sure we'll talk about another female villain in another film that I think really works. I don't think Elektra works. I don't know if it's the writing. I don't know. I think her acting is okay. I think, you know, the way she's playing a character is fine, but like when she dies, you're just like, okay, she's dead. Bond feels bad about it, but, you know, she's dead. And you don't care. Or I didn't care, so, you know. So it's like they try all these things that maybe worked in other films, but didn't quite land in this one, so.
Yeah, it's... And I would push back on that one. I just don't want to talk about this movie too much, just because I think that scene actually works pretty well. Okay. It's just everything around it. Everything building up to it. And it's kind of weird. I've never had a Bond film where I loved it in the theater, and I liked it when it first came out, but over time, this one has gone down a lot for me. I think last time we did these rankings, or I even thought about it, it was probably like 17 for me.
Wow.
But now we're in like the 20s.
Yeah.
So not too great for the world is not enough.
Yeah.
Suppose we all have to pay the piper sometime.
At 21, I have one that this was actually the first Bond film I watched this year.
Okay.
I was at home sick, had the flu, and I was like, I've heard a lot of people watching Bond films to kind of, cure their blues, cure their flus, all that stuff. So I was going to try that out. So I watched one I hadn't watched in decades. A View to a Kill.
Ooh.
And I have it at 21 because the whole time I'm watching this film, I wanted to like it.
Yeah.
Because there's elements I like a lot, such as Max Zorin, Christopher Walken's character. He's an awesome villain. Grace Jones as Mayday. She is top tier henchman, in my opinion. I love the 80s vibe. I love how that comes into play. The Duran Duran song, the title sequence.
Yeah.
But this film, I just can't get into it. It's the story's kind of all over the place. I love how campy it gets toward the end, but at the same time, just the way it's shot, the way it's edited. I'm going back to that again. The fact that they have to shoot around Roger because he's so old.
Oh yeah,
they're having so many stuntmen in this film that they're having to shoot that one sequence. The fight's happening downstairs, and there's have a camera at the top of the stairs for some reason, like there's somebody up there watching.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. This film, I like the score. I like the part with the fire and the fire truck going through San Francisco. But everything else, man, I just can't get behind this film.
Man, Christopher Walken is just, I'm like, this guy can do no wrong. He's definitely the highlight of the film for me.
Wow. What a view to a kill.
I watched this film 2 weeks ago, and I was bored with it, man. Like, it was just boring to me. I didn't like it at all. I like the song, but then everything else, I was just like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't see it. And I think they knew when they made this film that this was not going to be a strong Bond film. Just because he's in his 60s. It's 1985.
Yeah.
And he tries his best.
He does.
He tries to do the charm. But he's with one of the worst Bond girls ever. Tanya Roberts, the late Tanya Roberts. She's awesome in other stuff like That 70s Show. But she's so annoying in this film. And I think they knew that. They basically made it like, we're going to highlight the villains a lot. Like, there's a lot of scenes with just Christopher Walken and Grace Jones doing their theme. And there's a scene early on where they're just like having this like martial arts thing. And it turns sexual all of a sudden. And it's that part of the film I like. I love how crazy they get with some of that stuff. But that's why I have it where I have it. I have it at 21 because there's certain parts that kind of charm me over. I'm like, okay, I like this element, but this is not one I want to stick in a lot. This is not one that I'm going to go back to because it like you're saying, you're kind of bored for parts of it. It kind of has a weird pacing issue. It's probably about 20 minutes too long.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, does anybody else want to drop out?
Number 20, man. What you got?
Number 20. Okay, so now we get into ones that I like a little bit more. This one is one that we talked about on the show about a couple years ago. And I always expect it to be that one that jumps up a lot for me. And it just never does. Because there's so much I like about it. But then there's certain parts that just bring it down for me. And that's Octopussy.
Dude, that is so crazy. Insane. That is so nuts. I was hoping you would say something else, but that's insane. Yeah, I think we feel the same about that film. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
And if you don't know the story behind this, go back and watch our video on that one. But basically, 1983, Roger wants to step aside, but there's a rival studio making another James Bond film, Never Say Never Again, with Sean Connery. Boy. And they're like, okay, Roger, you got to come back. You got to go toe-to-toe with Sean here. Otherwise, we're going to look stupid. And they had a good script, I think. I think the story works. I think the clown scene at the end used to not work for me because I'm like, James Bond is a clown? What do we got here?
General, there's a bomb in that cannon.
Sure, where else would a bomb be? Great clown, man.
I'm deadly serious. I'm a British agent.
What?
For God's sake, tell him who I am.
So that clown scene used to not work for me because it's just silly. James Bond dressed as a clown. He's too cool for that. But I don't know. I think what else is he going to disguise himself at a circus?
True.
That part kind of works for me, that sort of spy elements. But it's actually kind of tense how Roger plays that scene. Defusing that bomb in the circus, having to get everybody to take him seriously. This guy dressed as a clown. Saying, there's a bomb. It's about to go off and kill us all. That part I like. But the ending, just this last 30 minutes, it's too long. It takes me out of it. If this film was a little bit shorter and it had all those cool elements like the awesome henchman, it had the cool Cold War stuff that's prevalent through it. If it had that, and it was just a little bit shorter, I think I would probably rank this one a little bit higher.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I mean, if anybody can get away with being a clown and still being cool, it's probably Roger Moore, by the way. So,
yeah, he brings it.
Kudos to that. Everything else, though, I mean, kind of feel bad for him because it's like, this guy deserves better. This guy deserves better plots. This guy deserves a better movie. I don't know. It's kind of a sad thing to watch, really. Maybe not as bad as our previous entry that we just talked about, but still not the best.
It does have some great stunts in it, though. I'll give Octopussy credit for that. It has some awesome stunts. Like I said, the henchmen are awesome. There's a few scenes that it actually gets kind of creepy, kind of like slasher filming. I like that part. That's why I have it here, but it's mostly uneven.
I remember you liked it for a little while when we were kids. So
I think it's just because the novelty. This was actually the last one I watched. And I was really mad because my VHS broke the day I got it. Like the front part chipped off, so every time I put it in the movie into the disc player, or the VCR, I should say, it was very, very tough to watch this film. But I don't know, it just never has done it for me as far as like jumping up a lot. I like it. So my next one is the one that you had at 24, Spectre. This was one that I don't know. I have parts of me that really like this film.
Yeah.
Like to me, of all the Craig films, this is the most James Bondy film. It has the gun barrel. It has the sort of henchman with a weird sort of thing about him. I forget that wrestler's name that plays the henchman.
Batista?
Batista. Yeah, it's got Batista in it. But to me, this was the film I was most excited for of any Bond film coming to the theaters. Like 2 years in advance, I'm like, Spectre's coming out. They're going to have Spectre. Yeah. Because Skyfall was awesome.
Yeah.
And everybody loved that film.
Yeah.
And we're just expecting, same director's coming back.
Yeah.
Same Bond. Yeah. And we got Hans Landa in it.
Yeah.
Hans Landa as Blofeld.
Yeah.
Right? I was so hyped for this film, but I remember being so depressed.
Yeah.
That last 30 minutes of the film, I'm like, what is happening to this movie? Why is it sucking now? And that's how it always is for me. Like, I enjoyed the ride up until that last 30 minutes. And then I'm just like, this movie is really bad now.
like, I wanted to make myself love this film. Like, I was just like, no, this film's good. This is good. You know, yeah, it kind of got a little weird there at the end, but it's still a good film. And then I watched it, oh gosh, what was it, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever we started this. And I'm telling you, they cast everybody great. I mean, I think, what's his name could be great Blofeld. It was his writing, and it was just the way they used the character that was just terrible. You know,
well, it's the whole brother thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's
where
what
did
kills
that
it for
come
me.
from? What the heck? That made zero sense. I mean, it's like, yeah, let's shock the audience and say, oh, we're brothers now. Come on. Seriously? That made zero sense. So, yeah, this film is just a complete disappointment, and I'm just embarrassed to talk about it because it should have been great. It should have knocked the socks off of all of us die-hard, lifelong Bond fans, and it just kind of stunk. And that's terrible. And it makes me sad to think about it because it should have been great.
Yeah, and apparently you dislike it more than me now, which is crazy because I remember before we talked about these movies, you had it pretty high. You had it up there as one of Craig's best.
It's one of those films. Look, Craig's not the problem with this film. Like, if I say anything about Craig, it's not from this film. I mean,
he's awesome.
I think he did fine. It's everything else that just sucks. And so, you know, it's just a disappointment. So, you know, that's the thing about these films, though, and I'm sure you've had this experience. It's like a lot of these films can, for me anyway, for my money, can go either high up or low, just, you know, based on certain viewings and things, and, you know, certain things that you maybe see that you didn't, you know, the time before or whatever. And I think that's why these lists are so arbitrary. You know, it's just like, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because this one, I hated it a lot initially, and now it's moved up to where it is.
I mean, I could put this film 5 spots up next week. You know, I could go watch it and be like, but it's just like, for me, if I have to say it, right now, just because of how excited I was, and I think that's why I put it so low, because it was just so disappointing. Like, there's some films, you watch a trailer, you're like, that looks horrible. No, they made it look like the best movie ever. Mm-hmm. And then it just went, so.
Yeah. You're making me relive it right now. I'm getting PTSD.
Hey, right?
I mean, I introduced Minnie, my wife, to Bond that week that the film came out. We went and watched Skyfall. She loved it.
Yeah.
Especially because it features her hometown, Shanghai. She's like, this is awesome. And then we went and watched Spectre. The last 30 minutes, I'm looking at her like, sorry, I'm apologizing. But that being said, it has some positives, as we were saying. That's why it's risen for me. I think the Craig performance, this is the only one where he actually feels like he's playing James Bond, in my opinion. That he's actually James Bond. He's got the swagger. He's got all that. But the writing, as you were saying, is just atrocious. Especially, it just keeps going. It's like after the whole base blows up at the end, it's like, this film should be over now. This should be the end.
Yeah.
And then there's 30 minutes left.
Yep.
It's silly, I guess.
It's a train wreck, man. It's a train wreck, and it's horrible. It makes me sad just to think about it right now, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go have a good cry over it here in a minute.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's gone down that much for you, though.
Yeah. But like I said, next week it could be back up to like 18, just because there's parts of the movie I love. There's parts of it I actually really do love. And I think that's what frustrates me, is the stuff that I hate, I really hate.
All right, so here we are at 18. Mm-hmm. And this is one that it used to be really high for me. Like when we were kids, whenever I first got this film, it was way, way up there. It was actually, one point, it was probably my favorite Connery film outside of From Russia with Love.
Okay.
That's Thunderball.
Ooh.
So I got to tell you the story about how I got Thunderball first before we get into this.
Do it. Let's go.
That's probably why I ranked this one so high originally.
Yeah.
So you remember I hurt my knee in
Yep.
5th grade?
Yep.
So they had to drain a bunch of fluid off my leg one day, off my knee.
Ugh.
And they inserted a needle about this big, and they took off 3 vials of fluid off my leg. But my mom said, hey, if you don't cry during this, I'm going to let you go buy whatever Bond film you want. And I'm like, I know just the one, Thunderball.
awesome.
I can't find it anywhere. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy it.
Yeah.
I bought it. I had a great experience watching that film. I loved it. But now when I watch it, there's parts of it that really jive with me, and there's parts of it that just make me want to go take a nap. So what do you think about Thunderball? And
I have it 2 places up, by the way. I like it a little bit more than you. Yeah, Thunderball's an interesting film. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I don't think it's one of the best films or anything like that, but I think it's kind of like right in the middle. I mean, I could have put this film maybe even a little bit higher if I, thought about it a little bit more. I think it's got a cool song. I like the song. And I like Sean Connery's performance. I think he really
awesome.
carries this film as he should, playing the title character of Bond. And I think, as opposed to some of the other films that we've talked about, I think the story's actually pretty good. So I think I'm not sure this is a film like I would show somebody to introduce the character of Bond, but if you and I were hanging out and you had the film like, hey, let's watch this, I probably would like it. I'd probably watch it and be okay with it. So, I don't have a problem with this film. I mean, I get its flaws. It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, and some of the story doesn't really make sense. But as far as overall, I don't mind it.
yeah, and like you were saying, Sean Connery's awesome, and that's the part that I like about this film is this one has the real hangout feeling. There's a lot of scenes where you're just watching Bond hang out in his hotel room, or he's just getting in the car, hanging out the beach or something. And I really like that. I think the filmmakers did a good job of capturing this James Bond life on an adventure. Jamaica just feels so lived in. It's awesome. I love that part of it. It's like you're going on vacation. I don't know. This is a good one to watch this time of year. Like if you're in the beach mood or something. And I really like that. I like the story, like you're saying. This is Spectre, the big organization that's been going against Bond for 3 of the 4 first films. And it's big stakes. I like all that. I really like this film, and I know why some people put it in their top 10 and stuff. But to me, what brings it down is the pacing and the editing. The pacing, this film it goes on and on. So many scenes of Felix and Bond going around the helicopter, looking around. Then like Bond will jump out, he'll swim in the water for a little bit, and it just seems never ending. It's just like, okay, so Bond's putting on a scuba suit again. And I know back in the 65 when this came out, that was amazing. Yeah. Like the cinematography is awesome. I'm not going to knock that. And the underwater stuff's cool in theory. But to me, people fighting underwater, so slow. Yeah. And they have this exciting, crazy music going behind it. Like, dun, 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 dun. But I don't know. I like that scene. But at the same time, I don't like that scene. It's weird. Like I'm at war with myself when I watch it. Like when he pulls out that big jet ski and he's shooting harpoons at everybody, I'm behind that. Like this is crazy. It's two armies fighting each other underwater. What is going on here? But then we get to that last boat scene, and they've just got the photos just sped up so much. And it looks so fake. And normally that doesn't bother me, but at that point, the movie's gone on so long. It's had all these boring sequences that I'm just like, I just can't take it anymore.
I just feel like that at this point, Sean could do anything as James Bond, and people would just go with it at that point, So, I mean, like the fighting under the water thing is just like, okay, that's whatever. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's silly. There's some silliness, definitely. But I think if you put it in the time that this film came out, it's understandable how it is. And I think, as opposed to some of the other picks that we've talked about, The story's fairly good, silly in some parts, but overall, I think this is a fine film. So
yeah, and we got to talk about the best part of the film before we move on.
Oh yeah,
Fiona Volpe. She is the best villainess in the series, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Luciana Paluzzi, like she steals every scene she's in. She is just awesome. She's evil. She does the whole Bond thing against Bond, because Bond in the Connery areas, he's hard blooded. We talked about that. He's a cold blooded dude. And she has sex with him and then gets him captured immediately after. See, now I'm gonna kill you, and that's just like so Bondish thing. It's crazy because the film before that, Goldfinger, he did that, and Pussy Galore. She's changed now. She's a good guy. Yeah, it didn't work for her. What do you think about Fiona Volpe?
Oh my gosh, man! Like, hot, fun. It's just a really interesting character. We'll probably talk about another couple of villainesses in some other films, but I think they got to give some praise to this one. I think she does a really good job. I liked her.
Awesome. Well, we can agree upon that, and I'm glad you ranked this one higher because I like this one a lot. I want to like it more. Same thing with this next one. I have it 17, and I guess now we're getting into the good films. For 17, I have Dr. No, the first Bond film. We talked about this one off the air before. I like the espionage elements of it. I like the character Bond in it. I like how they did a great job of just making you know who this guy is and what he's about. But the whole Dr. No stuff at the end of the film, that's when it kind of loses me a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like we're talking about Spectre. I want to like this film more because it is the first Bond film. But I think because it's the first Bond film, they don't know how to do a lot of things well yet. So they're just kind of trying their best, like with the intro, with the 3 blind mice thing. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate this film. Again, not one I would show a Bond rookie, but for somebody that's very familiar with the series, I think there's a lot of things you can look at this film and go, yeah, it's pretty good. But to call this film Dr. No, and that obviously being the villain, he's a little underwhelming. What do you think?
I totally agree. That's the part that doesn't work for me because they build him up so well.
Exactly.
Like we don't even see him for the first hour and a half of the film.
Right.
We just see his henchmen. We see we hear his voice. We see his shadow. I like that stuff. I like the filmmaking choices there. And then even the scene where he's like talking to Bond and calling him like just a stupid policeman and all that stuff. I like that part.
Yeah.
I think the character is pretty good. But the ending, just this part at the end, he is very underwhelming at that part.
Right.
He does not give Bond a good fight at all. It's just kind of like, oh, you punched me once. I'm in the acid now. I'm gonna melt.
Yeah.
So it's very underwhelming for what he was built up to be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the part that doesn't work for me in the film is the spectacle that gets better in the other Bond films. The spectacle in this one that they were going for just doesn't work. The whole dragon, that thing is hilarious if you look at it sometimes. Even though it kills my man Coral, that's where it went too far. I like this one because it has the best allies in my opinion. I like Coral.
Yeah,
that guy's so awesome, and I love the Felix in this one. He's my favorite Felix because he's cool like Bond, and I don't think we get that from a lot of the other Felixes. I
don't know, man. The Felix for me in Live and Let Die is my favorite.
Yeah, he's pretty good too.
He's awesome.
Yeah, but this one I like a lot of it. Ursula Andress in a bikini, that's obviously a big selling point for the film. Connery, he's doing his best. He's not as comfortable with the role.
Right.
But there's parts of it I really like. I love the scene where he's sitting there and he kills the doctor. That's one of my favorite Bond scenes, period. So I like all that, but as we were saying, the spectacle, not the best. What did you end up having at 17?
I had From Russia with Love on this one, man. Yeah, I know, man. I was waiting for your face. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll handle that 2 episodes from now when we talk about that.
Don't worry. Come on.
Okay, I'm prepared for it because I don't see.
You have a movie that fell for you too, man. You did.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta soldier on. We got one more pick.
Do you want me to go ahead and plead my case at this point?
If you feel like it's necessary, I think it'd be.
Based on the look on your face, I think it is, man. Because I just
just give us a tease. Give us a tease. So this will be coming up in 2 episodes from now. We do our top 5 because it's in my top 5.
So, oh man, I don't know what it was because up until the last time I watched this film, I had it in my top 5 as well. But I was watching it the other day, and I just got bored with it. Like, I don't know. It didn't hit me like it had for so long. I think Karimbe is... I just think it's a boring film, to be honest with you.
Man.
I don't think it hit the way that I remember it hitting for so long, And I know I've sung this film's praises on the show. Man, I just had one of the, I guess it was maybe the experience of watching it the other night or something. Maybe I was in a bad mood. I don't know. But it just ended up falling, and there you go. So,
that's rough, man. But I can see what you're saying. This one was actually trending down for me until this most recent viewing, and then it jumped back up. It re-clicked for me. So I could see how you could kind of feel that way. So
I mean, that's the thing with these films, and I'm sure you can agree with me here. These films, especially the older films, I feel like a lot of it is based on when you watch it. So you could watch the film one day and just love it, and then watch it maybe a month later, and I don't know, it just doesn't have its ring or something. I don't know what it is. So and it bothered me actually because I did love this film. So
hey, we'll talk about it more. But I can see. I'm glad you told me that. It just kind of shocked me at first. It was. Soldier on. This is the last one for this episode, and this was one, as we were just talking about, a film that was trending down. This one was once in my top 10, and now I just can't put it there. This was actually the first Bond film I actually owned. You got it for me for my birthday before I got some other Bond films, but technically it was the first one I ever owned, and that's The Living Daylights at number 16. This one, so much of it I like, and some of it I still like, but this past time watching it, this was not one that I had a good experience watching, especially the last 30 minutes or so.
Doc! We've nothing to declare!
I remember getting this film, and I remember liking this film for the longest time, and I mean, it's probably my favorite Dalton film, but I'm not a huge Dalton fan of his films, and I'm not even sure that it's his fault, really. I don't know what it is, man. I don't really jive with these Bond films. I feel like maybe not as hard-edged as like these last ones, but I really felt like that they were trying to almost go too dark for the character at this point.
Yeah. I think they didn't know what they wanted to do with the character, because part of the movie feels like a Roger Moore movie, and then part of it's a Timothy Dalton film, and he's tries his best at the Roger comedy stuff, but he's just not that great at it. As we'll talk about License to Kill, I think that one he gets it better. This one, I actually like what he's bringing at. I don't want to get into that too much just because we talked about it for a whole extras episode, but Dalton, yeah, I like his performance. I like the first hour of this film is awesome to me. That whole opening pre-title sequence, it's awesome. I mean, it's my favorite like Bond introduction almost. I think I don't know if it's as good as GoldenEye, but it might be there as far as that.
Close.
It's close. It's in the discussion. So I like that part. I love the stuff where he has to get old Kuskov out of the out of Russia. I love that, getting him out of there. The whole thing with the sniper, that stuff's cool. I like that we get to know about him through that sequence. We get to know how is this Bond different. That's all cool. But once they get to Afghanistan, that's when it kind of goes down for me. Just how they bring in that whole element, the Soviets there. Thing with the diamonds and the heroin smuggling, it just gets kind of convoluted. The main villain, if he's supposed to be the main villain, Whitaker, Joe Don Baker.
Oh yeah,
he's not the best. Like that fight at the end. When I was a kid, I thought he was kind of menacing. You know, it was like, he's got a shield. He's armed. We're in Bond's in his turf. But now when I watch it, I'm like, Bond is gonna make mincemeat of this guy. It doesn't. There's no tension there. It feels like, he's just gonna take this guy out. The henchman and I really like. I like the blonde guy. I forget his name, but he's pretty good. The milkman is what I always call him because he was serving the milk there. There's a lot of sequences I really like in this film, but like I said, it gets derailed. But that last 30 minutes, it's like, what are we gonna do after this awesome film? I don't know. Let's just send it down the tubes, but not as bad as Spectre though.
No, not quite. Joe Don Baker, he shows up in another film, though, and I think redeems himself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Living Daylights, other than you're not a fan of Dalton?
I'm just not a fan of Dalton, but I think this film is... I think what they tried to do with these last films, they did better with Dalton. I feel like that Dalton his Bond is a little more flawed. His Bond is a little more damaged. So he's not the flirty of Connery or really of Roger Moore. And that, I think, kind of rubbed me the wrong way in previous viewings. But I understand it now. I understand what they were kind of going for to try to get away from that. And I think for the most part, it does work better than I remembered. But it still can't. I still can't put it up there with top 10 or anything like that. I think the film itself though has a lot going for it until, like you said, it kind of loses me there at the end, and you're just like, okay, whatever. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's got a lot of work for it. To me, Dalton, I like the performance. I like what he's doing. But it's just not. I don't know. I wish he could have got another film, just because I think he had potential. Just how this film had potential before they decided to go crazy. And I guess it's just me getting older and maybe more critical. Because, like I said, I really loved this film originally. The whole double agent being double crossed, and I don't know why as a kid I liked the Bond girl a lot in this one. Now I don't so much. So it's definitely gone down a few rungs for me, but I think it's mainly from the filmmaking, the screenwriting aspect. It's nothing with the actors, nothing with the music, nothing with the presentation. It's just sort of how the story's told and how the action sequences are shot toward the end. Because,
like we've said before, if this is one of your favorite films and you really like this film, I understand it. I can understand the draw of this film, but for me and my money, it's just kind of middle of the road, kind of like where I have it.
Awesome. So number 16 through 25, it's in the books. They're out there.
It is.
Look at your rankings.
Yes.
Look at what we got. So from here on, you see that there's a few we haven't talked about. Some that you guys probably think are crap. Those are coming up. In fact, I might have one of those crappy ones you're thinking of in the top 5. So come see me. Come find me. And
let us know what your list is, guys. Like I said, we're all in this together. It's all funny games. Steve and I, we've agreed on quite a few more than even I anticipated. Cannot wait to see how we do on the rest of this list. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe so you'll get notified when we come up with our next part of the list. And like we said, let us know what you think. And Steve, a lot of fun, man. I look forward to our next episode. And until then, we'll see you guys next time on the SuperCaZt. Take care.